Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Monday review time as I look back at the weekend fixture, and unfortunately it is another 2-0 defeat to talk about for Steve Evans' men. Myself, Boz, Owen and Reese all travelled up to Adams Park, knowing that it was going to be a tough game at the weekend, but unfortunately none of us could envisage us rolling over and being 2-0 down inside 7 minutes, which ultimately cost us the game in what was a really poor performance. Let's be honest, there's no way of dressing it up or sugarcoating it. The first 10 minutes are as bad can be. It's two really poor goals. The first is just a long punt downfield by the Wycombe keeper, David Stockdale. And from there, it's a catastrophe from a Gills defensive point of view. Max Amar doesn't win his header, gets easily bullied by Sam Vokes, unfortunately. Jack Tucker then makes the cardinal sin of dropping off and ball watching instead of stepping out, because if he steps out, it looks like Gareth McCleary will be offside. From there, McCleary takes over possession. Jack Tucker then tries to make a challenge. Doesn't really do anything. Dangles a leg. There's a little breakthrough from McCleary in his one-on-one. He smashes it in at the near post. And that's 1-0 after about 120 seconds. Not the greatest start against any side, but a team that had won 4 on the bounce previously makes it even harder, doesn't it? But 5 minutes later, 1 became 2. And it's another poor goal from our point of view. Ball gets worked from left to right. Comes to the middle of the park. There's a shot. And if you pause the highlights, we've actually got a decent defensive shape. We've got a 4, which is Robbie McKenzie, Max Amar, Tucker and David Tatonda, the left back. But for some reason, Tucker decides to step out, which leaves Brandon Hanlon in behind him. And then when there's a ricochet off a combination of, I think, Sam Vokes and Max Amar, it falls to Hanlon in the 6-yard box. Fairness to our former striker, it's a really smart finish. It's composed, clips it over Jamie Cumming, who might have got something on it, but not enough. And that was 2-0 inside 10 minutes. Game over? Most people would have said yes, considering the respective positions at the start of play of both sides. What I will say is credit to the Gills, though. They did pick themselves up and they did try and have a go. And for about 20 minutes, we were in the game at least. We weren't really creating loads and loads of clear-cut chances. We wasn't really getting in behind, and we certainly weren't testing David Stockdale enough. But sadly, going the other way, we were like rabbits in headlights every time the Wycombe players got anywhere near our 18-yard box. We just looked like an accident waiting to happen, which is a real shame, because aside from Wimbledon this season, we've been decent enough in most games. There's been patches where we've not been good, but there's been patches where we've been really good. But we didn't see any of that at the weekend, unfortunately, and that's ultimately why we lost the game. We did have that spell, like I've mentioned. There was a couple of long-range efforts. Danny Lloyd had a couple, I think. One, he forced the keeper into a smart save, a routine save. Carl Dempsey had one. Danny Lloyd hit another one wide. And then the big chance out of the blue, Carl Dempsey managed to pinch possession in front of the left back, I think it was, or the player covering at left back at least, and won us a penalty. Then there was a big delay for an injury, or if you're more cynical, you might say that it was some time-wasting tactics and some delaying tactics. But whatever it was, it worked more in the favour of Wycombe Wanderers than it did for Gills, unfortunately. For Dane Oliver, who had a very off day, which is unusual for him, blazed the penalty over the bar and into the home terrace, and that basically summed up our first half, didn't it? Second period was pretty much a non-event. We come out, we made one change. Daniel Adseed, the young lone player from Norwich, was taken off at the expense of Stuart O'Keefe, who come on in a straight swap. And I said it was a straight swap. Unfortunately, it was in every sense of the word, because the game bypassed Stuart O'Keefe for me, much in the same way that it bypassed Daniel Adseed in the first period. We were bright for about 5 minutes. We won a couple of throws and got a couple of crosses into the box, but didn't really cause David Stockdale any problems. The best chance we had was when, I think it might have been Ryan Tafazolli, tried to head it back to Stockdale, and Stockdale had already come all the way out, and he was forced to tip it out of a dangerous area, and they hacked it clear. But that was pretty much it. And after that, the second half was pretty much a non-event. In fact, they came the closest to scoring again when Brandon Hanlon, who was a threat throughout, hit the post via Jamie Cummings' hand. No shots of real venom from our point of view. We huffed and we puffed. We never threatened to blow the house down. And Wycombe were really comfortable. And to compound that, what was a really bad day, 2-0 down inside 10 minutes, missed a penalty, really poor from start to finish. There's another injury to contend with. David Tatonda went off. It has been confirmed by Steve Evans in his post-match interview that it looks like he's going to be out for a little while, and he's another one for the treatment table. So it just seems at the moment, every time we get one fullback back, we lose another one for a period of time. But we'll have to suck it up, dust ourselves down and move on towards Sunderland next weekend. But yeah, all in all, a really poor performance from Gills, and we got exactly what we deserved, and that was absolutely nothing. In terms of best chairboy on the afternoon, there was a few candidates, and obviously they were all in forward areas because that's where they were most potent in the early period of the game, and then they managed things really, really well. I've said for years that I like Ryan Tafazolli as a centre-half, but he had a really easy afternoon, didn't he? Let's be fair. Sam Vokes won pretty much everything in the air, it felt like. He was a constant threat. He did what Verdane Oliver does to most defences on a weekly basis, and he did it to our back four. Gareth McCleary, I think, is involved in both goals, isn't he? He scores the first. I think he's involved in the possession in the run-up to the shot that eventually leads to the ball falling at Brandon Hanlan's feet for the second, which you can say is ultimately a clincher, if you can have a clincher after 7 minutes. But for me, the best player for Wycombe Wanderers was Brandon Hanlon. I thought he was absolutely superb. I rated him when he was at Gills. I make no bones of that. I'm not ashamed to say that. I really thought he was a good player. And I said if you give him time and you work with him, he'll score goals. He's got 3 in his first 8 or 9 for Wycombe, and I think he'll continue to do well. He was a brilliant foil for Sam Vokes, wasn't he? Sam Vokes was playing with his back to goal, winning everything in the air, and we all know that Brandon Hanlon's got pace and power in abundance. The disappointing thing from our point of view is we never learned how to deal with it, and this is Max Amar and Jack Tucker that have played with him at Gills over quite a long period, but we didn't know whether to get touch tight, and we did that and he span us, or if we dropped off he ran past us, and then we were forced into fouling him and getting all handsy and pulling his shirt, and it was just giving away free kicks in daft areas. And like I say, he took his goal really well. He completed 84 minutes, he had 2 shots on target, 82% pass completion. He hit the post / bar, didn't he, second half, so that could have been a match double. 1 key pass was made during the game as well, and he won 63% of his duels, so he had a really good afternoon. Brandon Hanlon, like I say, we probably made it too easy for him, but the old adage is you can only play what's in front of you and beat what's in front of you, and everything that Brandon had to do, he did it really, really well. So for me, he was the best chairboy on the afternoon. In terms of Gills player ratings, look away now if you're of a nervous disposition, because it was a car crash. Jamie Cumming got 6. He's not at fault for any of the goals. He's had no backup, no support from those in front of him, unfortunately. Across the back four, we gave Robbie McKenzie, Jack Tucker and Max Amar all 5s, and David Tatonda a 5.5. Not that David Tatonda was great, it was just that they didn't really target him as much as they did Robbie McKenzie, who was getting doubled up on and got absolutely terrorised for the entirety of the game. In terms of the midfield 4, Alex McDonald, Carl Dempsey 5.5s, Daniel Adsey the 5. Like I've already mentioned, the game passed him by. Danny Lloyd, the 6, was the bright spark for me. If bright spark's the right word, it's probably a bit of an exaggeration. Such was the performance from everybody, but at least he was still willing to run in behind and work hard and try and make things happen right to the very end. In terms of the front 2, John Akindi a 6 and Verdane Oliver a 5. Just a really, really bad day at the office for Verdane Oliver. Even if you take out the penalty miss, he wasn't really at the races, didn't really get a sniff. John Akindi, I thought, was bright enough. I've criticised him in recent weeks since he came back from injury, but I thought he was decent enough yesterday. He was best of a bad bunch at least. He's had a couple of shots on target, hasn't he? And he was trying to link up play, and he was playing with his back to goal pretty well, winning his flick-ons and his battles. And the 2 substitutes for me, Stuart O'Keefe for 5. Like I say, the game didn't change, the pattern didn't change when he came on for Daniel Adsey. He just went in there and got overran, unfortunately. And Reece Bennett got 6. He played the last 15 minutes coming on for the injured David Tatonda. Won a couple of flicks in their box without really creating any real danger. And he didn't make any mistakes defensively. In terms of the Gills man of the match, I am going to go for that front man, John Akindi. Looking at the stats and having seen the game in full, I thought he was the best of a bad bunch, no more than that. Completed 90 minutes, he had 2 shots on target. I think he had another one off target where he was off balance and tried to volley it towards goal first half after getting on the end of a Verdane Oliver flick, I think it was. Completed 78% of his passes, including 1 key pass. I think that might have been what led to the penalty. I'm sure it was him that flicked it out wide, where Carl Dempsey got tripped. Won 50% of all of his duels, which isn't the best, but again, it was better than others. Defensively, he worked hard enough. He's made a clearance in his own box. He's won 2 tackles as well. We need to see more from John, and we certainly need to see more from everybody collectively, don't we? Because Saturday was an absolute car crash of a performance. But I'm sure they know that. I'm sure Steve Evans will get into them and go through things on the training ground. The good thing is we've got a full week between this game and Sunderland. The games are not getting any easier. But fingers crossed we can dust ourselves down and go and put in a good performance next week against the Mackhams. One quick question before I do finish up is at what point do we become concerned? Generally, you say 10 to 12 games is where teams are going to be come the end of the season. The table starts to take shape. People start to find their places, the natural order. Well, at the moment, we're just outside the relegation zone, and we played 1 or 2 more games than everybody else because of Saturday's game being played on an international weekend and 8 games in League One being called off. I am concerned, I'm not going to lie. I've always said that under Steve Evans we won't be in any type of trouble, but at the moment we just look very, very blunt in an attacking sense, and we're conceding too many goals. That's 3 2-0 defeats on the bounce in the space of a week, if you include the pizza trophy in Tuesday's game against Ipswich. We score the penalty, it's a different game, but ifs and buts and all that, and we didn't, and we got beat comfortably, and I'm not sure that we'd have really deserved anything, even if we had got back into the game, if the penalty had gone in. Let us know what you think, who's to blame. I know we had the chat on the Gills in the pub pilot episode about 6 weeks ago, and that will continue. That's not been forgotten about. It's just trying to find a free weekend when I'm not at a home game or an away game. It looks like it might be penciled in for the Bolton weekend, episode 2 of that Gills in the pub series. But we can all talk about Paul Scally. There was lots of chance about him again at the weekend. There was a banner as well, and it was probably the most vocal and the most consistent, and the most consistent it's been over the period of a game. And that's because, unfortunately, we didn't have anything to cheer about on the pitch. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it was there, and we can't ignore it. But I think Steve Evans is culpable at the weekend as well. Why, when you've got Charlie Kelman and Gerald Sito on the bench, do you send them out to warm up for pretty much the entirety of the second period? And you don't bring either of them on when you're chasing the game. I'd much rather we'd have had a go and lost 3-0, at least been shown willing. But to just leave them 2 on the bench, I know we've had to make an enforced change. That happens. Stuart O'Keefe didn't change the pattern, I've already said that. But let us know what you think. Like I say, we know the investment isn't as we'd like. But yeah, I don't think we can put yesterday's performance at the feet of Paul Scally, personally. Anyway, that is enough from me. Remember, if you are looking to lose weight and play football with like-minded individuals, then you can check out Man v Vat Football and use the code GillsInTheBloodTV, and you will get a massive reduction on your subscription. I think it is only at the Gillingham site at the moment. Chatham has been postponed, but they are looking at getting into Gravesend as well. So go and check that out. I will put the graphic up at the end of the show. I'll be back later in the week for a match preview with hopefully a Sunderland fan. And then I'll return with Boz and hopefully Stocky for a match day live next Saturday against Sunderland. But until next time, enjoy your week and up the Gills.